When the system fails you, build your own table. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Soft Girl Era podcast. I'm LeAnne Dolce, pronounced Dolce, like sweet softness whispered in French. And I am your guide from burnout to boundaries, from doing to being, from strong to soft, and loving every second of it. Tonight, I want to share something with you that came from a conversation I had recently with someone who is doing extraordinary work in the world, someone who understands what it means to pivot, to transform adversity into opportunity, and to redefine success on terms that honor both resilience and rest. I had the privilege of interviewing Laurie Tucker, a visionary leader who is helping Black women navigate one of the most challenging economic moments of our time. Laurie Tucker is making the world a better place by creating space where Black women can exhale, pivot, and reclaim their power without apology. They are building networks, platforms, and communities that don't just support survival, they celebrate transformation. What Laurie shared with me left me stunned, inspired, and ready to challenge everything we think we know about success, survival, and softness. Let me start with a question that might make you uncomfortable. What if everything we've been taught about success, about resilience, about what it means to be strong, is actually keeping us stuck? What if the very systems we've been told to trust, the very ladders we've been climbing, are crumbling beneath our feet, and instead of mourning the fall, we're being called to build something entirely new? Here's the surprising truth that Laurie Tucker shared with me, and I need you to really hear this. Despite Black women's remarkable academic achievements, despite our historic leadership in the workforce, despite the fact that we have been the backbone of so many industries, we are facing an unprecedented wave of layoffs and economic exclusion in 2025. But here's the twist. These setbacks are not breaking us. They are fueling a radical reimagining of success, not just survival, success. The narrative isn't simply about loss. It's about how Black women are using these challenges as a catalyst to pivot, to innovate, and to rewrite the rules of what professional and entrepreneurial success looks like in America. And I need you to understand something right now. This is not a story about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. This is not a story about working harder or hustling smarter. This is a story about what happens when the systems that were supposed to protect us fail. And we decide to build our own tables, our own networks, our own definitions of what it means to thrive. Let me give you some context that will shake you. In early 2025, more than 350,000 Black women were laid off from the U.S. workforce. Let that number sit with you for a moment. 350,000. These were not just jobs, these were careers. These were federal positions, diversity, equity, and inclusion roles, leadership positions that Black women had fought to secure, positions that provided stability, benefits, and a pathway to the middle class. Historically, federal jobs have been a lifeline for Black women. They offered something that the private sector often denied us: stability, respect, and the opportunity to lead. But recent policy changes in corporate America's retreat from DEI initiatives left many highly educated Black women without employment, without institutional support, and without the safety net they had worked so hard to build. Sudden job loss, loss of benefits, the elimination of initiatives that were supposed to level the playing field loomed. And for many, the loss of professional identity and community. Imagine waking up one morning, checking your email, and discovering that the role you poured your heart into, the position you fought for, the work that gave you purpose, is gone. Just like that. No warning, no apology, no explanation. But here's where the story shifts. Here's where Laurie Tucker's insights become revolutionary. Many of these women did not collapse. They pivoted. They leveraged their skills to launch businesses. They built peer support networks. They created safe spaces for professional growth. And in doing so, They began to reshape what professional success means, not just for themselves, but for the next generation. Black women led startups increased. Some reported a 7% average pay bump after switching careers or starting businesses. But more than that, they began to form new businesses, increase community philanthropy, and create platforms that inspire others to pursue entrepreneurship and advocate for systemic change. They didn't just survive the storm, they became the architects of something new. Let me tell you about Fajani Cadet. Fajani was a highly educated black professional, a director of diversity and inclusion. Their role was critical in shaping corporate culture and creating spaces where voices that had been silenced could finally be heard. In April 2025, they were laid off, just like that. Their position was eliminated as part of a broader trend of black women losing jobs due to corporate America's retreat from DEI. Fajani faced anxiety about the future, financial instability, and the loss of professional identity and community. But they did not stay stuck. Fajani, along with others in similar positions, began to seek new opportunities. They moved into entrepreneurship, consulting, and advocacy work focused on inclusive leadership. They established consulting practices, workshops, and mentorship programs for other Black professionals. And in doing so, they helped maintain momentum for diversity and inclusion initiatives outside traditional corporate structures. This is the power of the pivot. This is what happens when we stop waiting for systems to save us and start building our own. Fajani didn't just lose a job, they found a calling. They discovered that their expertise, their voice, their leadership didn't need a corporate title to be valid. They created their own platform, they built their own table, and they invited others to sit with them. Now, let's talk about the federal workforce, because this is where the story gets even more devastating and more inspiring. Black women make up about 12% of the federal workforce compared to 6% of the general population. And in 2025, they were disproportionately affected by federal layoffs. In the Department of Education alone, 28% of the jobs cut were held by Black women. Let that sink in. 28%. These were not just jobs, these were stable, well paying positions that were key to maintaining middle class status and supporting families and communities. Federal jobs have historically been a reliable avenue for economic advancement for Black women, offering benefits and stability often denied elsewhere. For many, these positions represented more than a paycheck, they represented dignity, they represented a promise that hard work and education would lead to security. But when those jobs were eliminated, many affected women turned to community organizing, advocacy, and entrepreneurship to fill the gap left by lost federal employment. They increased community engagement, philanthropic giving, and established new organizations focused on economic empowerment. They strengthened community networks and increased awareness of the need for policy change to protect vulnerable workers. They didn't just mourn what was lost, they built what was needed. So here's what I want you to take away from this conversation with Laurie Tucker. Here are the three key insights that I believe can change the way we think about success, resilience, and softness. First, resilience and innovation. Black women are not just enduring systemic setbacks. We are actively transforming adversity into new opportunities. We are launching businesses, building networks, and redefining success on our own terms. This is not about survival. This is about creation. This is about refusing to let systems define our worth or our potential. Second, systemic barriers remain profound. Despite leading in academic achievement, Black women face disproportionate layoffs, underfunding, and a lack of institutional support. This highlights the urgent need for systemic change in both corporate and entrepreneurial spaces. We cannot pivot our way out of systemic oppression. But we can build while we fight for change. We can create alternative pathways while we demand that the existing systems do better. Third, the power of the pivot. The ability to pivot, whether by changing careers, starting new ventures, or creating support systems, is a powerful tool for navigating economic uncertainty and building generational wealth and community impact. The pivot is not a sign of failure, it is a sign of wisdom. It is a recognition that sometimes the path forward requires us to change direction, to let go of what we thought success should look like, and to embrace what success actually feels like. Now, I want to connect this back to the heart of the soft girl era. Because here's the thing, the pivot is not just about changing jobs or starting businesses. The pivot is about releasing the cape, it's about redefining strength, it's about embracing softness in a world that taught us survival. For so long, Black women have been told that we have to be strong, that we have to carry everyone, that we have to hustle harder, work longer, and prove ourselves over and over again. And yes, we are resilient. Yes, we are powerful, but resilience should not mean suffering in silence. Strength should not mean sacrificing our peace. The women whose stories Laurie Tucker shared with me, the women who are navigating this unprecedented economic moment, they are learning to be soft in a world that taught them survival. They are learning to say no without guilt. They are setting boundaries without apology. They are resting without explanation. They are embracing healing, wholeness, softness, and emotional honesty. This is the sacred pause Black women have been waiting for. This is not a trend. This is a lifestyle rebellion, a deep exhale from the Superwoman script, a quiet but powerful return to softness, rest, self trust, and radical joy. And here's what I want you to understand: the pivot is not just about economics, it's about identity. It's about reclaiming who you are, not the version shaped by family expectations, church roles, or boardroom rules, but the real you that's been waiting to bloom. So let me ask you this: how are you learning to be soft in a world that taught you survival? What role, mask, or responsibility are you no longer willing to carry? How has your definition of strength evolved? What does your soft girl era look and feel like right now? What past wound are you still tending to, and what's helping? How are you actively creating space for joy, rest, and boundaries? And how have you turned survival into something sacred or supportive for others? These are the questions that Laurie Tucker is helping Black women answer. And these are the questions that I want you to sit with tonight. Because here's the truth: the systems that were supposed to protect us are failing, but we are not failing. We are pivoting, we are innovating, we are building, and we are doing it with softness, with grace, with boundaries, and with joy. This is not about working harder. This is about working smarter, resting deeper, and loving ourselves louder. This is about protecting our peace as a practice. This is about purpose beyond pain. So here's my challenge to you, not my request, my challenge. How will you use your voice, your platform, or your resources to support Black women who are pivoting and redefining success? Not just for themselves, but for their communities and future generations? Will you invest in a Black woman owned business? Will you mentor someone who's navigating a career transition? Will you create space in your organization for voices that have been silenced? Will you advocate for policy change that protects vulnerable workers? Will you show up, listen, and hold space for someone who's healing? Because the pivot is not just individual, it's collective. And we need each other. We need you. The women who are building businesses in their living rooms need you. The women who are launching consulting practices after being laid off need you. The women who are organizing communities and creating new networks need you. And if you are one of those women, If you are the one who has been laid off, who has lost your job, who is facing financial instability and uncertainty, I need you to hear this. You are not broken. You are not less than. You are not a failure. You are in the middle of a transformation. You are in the sacred pause. And what you build next will be more powerful, more authentic, and more aligned with who you truly are than anything you've built before. This is your moment. This is your soft girl era. This is the moment when you stop performing strength and start embodying softness. When you stop proving your worth and start knowing your value. When you stop waiting for permission and start giving yourself the freedom to build, to rest, to pivot, to heal, and to thrive. Laurie Tucker's doing this work every single day, and I'm asking you to join them. Join us, join this movement of Black women who are choosing softness, who are setting boundaries, who are building businesses, who are redefining success, and who are doing it all without apology. The world tried to break us, but instead we built our own tables. Now it's your turn. Go build something beautiful. And remember, you don't have to do it alone.